and the issues which it raises for us are horrendous in many ways. Aging is a big problem too. Well, I moan and groan that I'm getting old, but in one sense, old age is the only thing I have, so it's a great gift that I have. I shouldn't complain. Hooray, I have life, even if it's old life. But as aging comes on, in the United States, we now have 19% of the people who are in my category, over 60. I'm just a little bit over. By 30 years from now, it'll be 40%. Will be in the retired. Will there be a will among young voters to support all these old people? Because you watch the pyramid, and it used to be that the pyramid goes like this, and what it happens is now it's going to go like this, and there's a big bulge at the top of the pyramid. And that big bulge at the top of the pyramid is really dangerous because it says there are millions of old people. Who's going to take care of them? Who's going to provide for their health and their care? What happens when one young person has two older people, basically, that they have to support? Will they feel it's worth it? So aging is going to be another issue which faces. So I asked myself the question, with all of this, it sounds really grim, I'm sorry. These are what we call the mega trends. As far as we know, the mega trends will occur. Once a megatrend is in place, it's very hard for it not to happen. It has an enormous momentum. The only thing that can turn a megatrend like population is disease. Disease can wreck all the projections. A pandemic can change it overnight. But that will not be a wonderful solution either. AIDS has not been a wonderful solution to population growth in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. It's a tale of horror in terms of how many children have no parents, no grandparents, have no one to care for them. So Buddhists are going to have to ask the question, what is the role of Buddhism in this kind of world? What role does Buddhism play when you look at these megatrends and ask yourself the question of how will we respond? That's why I've said that, first of all, I really believe that we need informed Buddhists. For Buddhism to have a role to play in this complex world, we need people who really understand the complexity of the Buddhist teaching as the potential for some kind of an answer. H.L. Mencken said, for every complex question, there is a very simple answer that's wrong. You cannot answer a complex question with simplicity. It won't work. It sounds great on the television. It sounds great if you're a politician. But we know, and the Buddhists have taught us from the very first time of the Buddhist teaching, cause and effect is really complex. And if you're talking about how you can become part of a world in which all of these megatrends are sweeping through it, it's complex, and there's no simple answer. And you're not just going to be able to pop one off the cuff. It's going to require a lot of thought. But what concerns me in the world, and particularly in the religious world today, is that so many religions have moved to a very conservative stance in the face of all this change. People are frightened already. When they're frightened, what they do is to try to go back and recapture a simple message. They want it to be as simple as possible. And they're willing to almost dedicate and lose anything in order to have a simple solution. And it will fail them. Not only fail them, it will fail all of us. Because there is no simple solution to these issues. Of all the religions, it seems to me, therefore, that Buddhism has an obligation to let the world know about complex causality. It's very important. It is crucial for what's going to come at us to have somebody who is willing to face up to the complexity and say, it's very hard to solve these problems. The Buddhists always say, what you want to find is the way things really are, to the degree that you can. And you want to find it as quickly as you can and operate from that level. And it's hard to find out about things as they really are. And the reason is that there is, in causation, a thing called unintended consequences. Things happen that you didn't intend by what you did. So I use, and some of you have heard this before, example in my own life where I really worked for wind power because we have a wind river near San Francisco, and I thought, there's no problem. Let's build big wind towers in the Wind River and transfer that energy into electricity and stop burning fossil fuels. Right? It seemed. So we built the towers, hundreds of them. They do generate a lot of electricity. But that's also the flyway for all of our birds. And hundreds of thousands of birds have been killed. The ground is littered with dead birds. Unintended consequences. Nothing is assured. You must be ready for the unintended consequences of anything that you attempt to do. So that we constantly have to evaluate what we're doing and to go back and rework it. The other thing that I say to people in terms of facing what the future is that Buddhism, I think, must not try to copy the model of social welfare of the West. To solve the problems of human issues with the social welfare system as it's developed under the ideas that a good person is someone who helps a poor person. That's what a good person is, by a very simple definition. But we see the dangers in that. If I'm a good person, and I'm strong, and I have money, and I have education, and I help this poor person who's weak and needy and not as good as I am, I take away their dignity, and I enrage them. We had the situation in St. Louis in the United States. They built a series of apartments for poor people, and they identified it as, this is where poor people live. This is where the needy, this is where the lower people live. They became so enraged by this, they tore the thing apart, and finally they brought the wreckers in and simply tore it down. It would not work. You must follow, as my feeling is, the Buddhists must follow their own teaching, and the teaching is this: you must help all sentient beings. And that means everybody. And who is everybody? Everybody is rich and poor and healthy and sick. It's everybody. And you do it equally for them. You don't say to one person, "You're rich, I don't help you. You don't need it because I can't feel superior to you. I only help those people that are below me and they're down here." So that's why I really like the Tzuji system in Taiwan. They build a beautiful hospital. They make it free. Everybody can go there, rich and poor. They don't stop you at the door and say, "How much money do you make?" It's one of the best hospitals in Taiwan. People come from all over the island to go there. At the end of the time, they say, you pay what you can and what you want to pay. But people can go there who are poor and not feel shamed, because rich people in their Mercedes are pulling up all the time because it's one of the best hospitals in the country. So everybody says, "Of course I go over to this place."